Welcome to Inside Patient Attraction. I'm Colin Receiver, and today's ultra-competitive online environment means you have to step up your game if you want to play. I'm going to be joined today by Trent Arkema, our Vice President of Marketing, and we're going to talk all about what you need to be doing to dominate your market area, stay ahead of the competition, beat corporate dentistry, and more. Stay tuned. Trent, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So I want to talk today a little bit about digital marketing. You're the VP of marketing here at SmartBox. And what do you see in traditional dental marketing? When we bring a client in, what kind of issues and problems do you typically see with their marketing that they and we both recognize need to be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the dentists that we work with have been doing traditional marketing, and that's really, print advertising and really focused on coupons and specials and discounts. And they've dabbled in a little bit of digital, but they don't have an integrated approach.
When you say integrated approach, what's that mean? That's kind of a buzzword in the world today.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about being everywhere that the user is, right? You just can't be in one spot. Now that the user is so connected and so wired all the time, as an advertiser and as a business, you need to be where your patients are.
So if a dentist were to want to see what an integrated kind of all-encompassing approach might look like in their market area, say what maybe one of their competitors is doing, would it be probably a safe bet that if you looked at your local corporate dentist, you could see all the money that that big gorilla is going around spending?
Yeah, I mean, the corporate dentists do have bigger pockets than, a smaller dentistry. So they're going to see whatever they're doing. And so if you're just doing the basic things and going after the coupons and the specials, it's really a race to a bottom. You're not doing anything that any other dentist isn't doing, and every other dentist has a master's too, so you're not standing apart. It's just a race to the bottom. You're going to get less patients down the road overall because again, you don't stand out in any aspect of your marketing.
It's really hard too for the private fee-for-service dentist with one practice to compete on price with the corporate dentist that has the economies of scale, right? They can undercut you on everything because they have cheaper labs, they have cheaper supplies, they have bigger advertising budgets. Overall, they bring a big business economic approach to the small town dentistry world.
Exactly. And so when you look at things, if you're going to try to compete on price, again, you're probably going to end up losing. And that's why, in the digital world, with all the different tools and platforms that you can use, digital is really the way to go and get patients because you can do it cost effectively.
And when you talk about an integrated approach, tell me a little bit about the different steps, the different what we call the pillars here. I want to talk a little bit with our webinar viewers about what 4 steps and 4 items we talk about here internally, our 4 pillars. And let's walk our viewers through why those are important. Does that sound good?
Definitely.
So pillar 1, attraction. What is attraction and what is that about?
Yeah, really we're talking about a system, right? When we talk about the 4 pillars, we're not talking about going to chase patients. We're talking about attracting patients, and that's done through a system, as you mentioned, right? And so really attraction is about being everywhere your users are at, right? Having that integrated approach. So having, being in organic, being in paid search, being on Facebook, being in display advertising through the Google Display Network, really encompassing everywhere somebody could be from a digital landscape is where you need to be because users are going to enter that funnel at different points and on different devices. So it's important that you be everywhere at all times as well.
And you're basically just talking about dominating your marketplace, being seen everywhere in the online sphere.
Right, exactly.
And when a potential new patient, you call them users, but let's be real specific.
Right.
These are actual new patients that are out there searching.
Correct.
They're going to see you no matter where they go. If they're on Facebook, they're going to get retargeted. If they're on Google, they're going to get hit. If they're on Bing, they're going to get hit. If they're searching, if they're In their email box, you're going to be delivering messages to them on some kind of regular basis, not so
Definitely.
often that you're annoying them,
Right.
but enough that you're keeping your name in front of them and conditioning them with that trust until they're ready to move forward.
Right. And, so the second pillar is conversion, right? Once you they've done their research, they've found you, they've read reviews about you, right? And so it's really important to have that social trust that you've built through online reviews and having reviews on your website as well. So people have that trust factor, right? And so they're going to take that next step and convert, whether that be through a phone call from your website, whether they've looked you up on Yelp or anything else, that phone number appears there, or a Google review, but also through a form submission on your website as well. So you want to have multiple conversion points so a user can convert however they want to convert with you. And so that is really the second pillar. And so in order to be there and convert that user, again, you have to be, there organically, there from a paid search perspective, and constantly working with them and reminding them through email follow-up as well. Also with conversion, we want to have video testimonials. Those are huge. People seeing and getting and seeing other patients work with the doctor helps solidify that doctor and builds that trust as well. So video testimonials and having videos on site is a huge part of that conversion aspect as well.
One of the biggest things about conversion, and I think in marketing we get caught up in the conversion aspect of it, and we need to make sure we realize that conversion is converting real people into patients, into butts in the chairs, right? And in order to take this prospect over here and move them into the chair or into a phone call, you've got to get them to know, like, and trust you. And sometimes that happens instantly, right? But oftentimes in dentistry, being a very trust-based profession, you have to build that trust. It doesn't happen overnight. If you're just trying to get in patients for cleanings and x-rays and exams, it's a very low level of trust. If you're trying to attract patients that want to spend $5,000 on Invisalign, or they want to spend $10,000 on veneers or $25,000 in implants, that trust level rises with the transaction size.
Definitely. That's where kind of the third pillar comes in, right? It's about follow-up, right? So you just can't stop at conversion just because somebody picks up that phone and calls you or, submits that form. That's not the end of that conversation. That's the beginning of your conversation with them. So, what we do with our dentists is that we have follow-up drip sequences through email, right? And so we're constantly following up with that potential patient, right, on things that are important to them. Through that initial contact, we find out, what are they interested in? What is the service that they need? And then follow up with them through a series of emails until they do convert into that patient, right? And so follow-up is definitely key just to keep that conversation going. And to your point, further build that trust that you've established early on in the relationship.
I think the important thing, Trent, with the email follow-up and this third pillar that we're talking about is, you've got to build that trust over time. Like I mentioned, you've got to continue to stay in front of these patients, sometimes for 6 months before they're ready to buy. And again, with trust level and transaction size are very relevant, directly proportional to each other. And that also is directly proportional, I think, to the time it takes to build that rapport with that patient. To get somebody to come in for a $25,000 implant case, that takes a lot of trust, and that also takes a significant amount of time to build that trust up. And communication.
Definitely. Yeah, we will basically change how many times we communicate and how frequently we will communicate with a certain patient depending on what services they're interested in. So to your point, that drip email sequence could last 2 weeks or it could last 6 months with a number of different emails to build that trust and get that patient to convert.
And then you can also really kind of mix the second and third pillars where, in the second pillar of conversion, you're going to have patient testimonial videos, you're going to have online reviews that are building that credibility, social proof, what Cialdini talks about as his weapons of influence. You can also use those in your follow-up to continue to drive home the rapport and the image, the expert status that you want to have to your patients in all that follow-up material that you're doing.
Definitely, definitely. You want that message to be consistent, right? From conversion to follow up and back to conversion, right? And so it's very important that whether you do that through ebooks or white papers, that you're having that consistent message across all the different communication channels.
And so summing all this up, we're doing attraction, we're doing conversion, we're doing follow-up. How do we make sense of all of this and figure out, how do we know what to do and what not to do?
Yeah, I think, that goes into the fourth pillar, which might be the most important, and that's tracking, right? It's about seeing what everything we did in those first three pillars, what that resulted in. And so we have a very robust tracking system. We have phone call tracking, we have form tracking, and we can do that by source. So we know where the traffic is coming from, what is actually converting. And so we can do more of what is getting patients in butts and chairs. And so we really, once we have the marketing in place and we have that going for a certain amount of time, we start to read those results. We have, call analysts that are listening to every single call as well. So we know if there's issues, we can relay that to the doctors very quickly. But we're also using that information to continuously optimize our campaigns and make them better. So we're only, bidding on the keywords that get you those patients. So we're using your budget most efficiently as we can. And so again, it's continuous optimization through our tracking process that we have in place.
And when you say source level tracking, what do you mean by that? That sounds kind of buzzish. Can you make that sound simple for our docs that are listening?
Right. So early on, we talked about in attraction that you want to be, in the Googles, in the Bings, in the Facebooks, in the Google Display Network. And we have tracking set up so we can see what source that user came from, whether that be Bing, whether that be Google, right? We don't know starting out what that's going to be. So we want to put tracking in place so we can see the results of our advertising efforts and marketing efforts. And then we can do more of that based on the results that we see. So that's what we mean by source level tracking.
So you're able to determine the source of the phone call, being it organic or paid search or email or Facebook or wherever that source of that new patient came from. We can break that down for the doctor and tell them, here's how many calls came in, here's how many you scheduled, here's how many your front desk didn't schedule, and then maybe even the most egregious violation of all, here's how many phone calls you didn't even answer during business hours.
Correct. That is very correct.
And I know I did a podcast a couple months ago talking about phone tracking, and we really got in depth there that if somebody wanted to learn more, we can do that. But from what you've seen, how many doctors don't even answer phone calls during business hours?
I think that's funny that you brought that up. We were looking at that stat just the other day, and there's around 50% of all of the calls that we generate go unanswered by our practices, which is a huge amount when you think about it.
50%?
50%.
Wow, that's not good. That's turning away patients right on your front doorstep.
Exactly.
Trent, we've covered a whole lot of ground here today. What can dentists do right now to implement what we've talked about here? Is this something that they can take and run with today and see some results tomorrow?
Yeah, they can. Some marketing and practices do have the pieces in place to create their own system. A lot of people don't, though. A lot of dentists don't have the time and don't have the resources to put this in place. We've talked about a lot of things. So, we find that some practices dabble in organic or dabble in paid search, but to have that truly integrated system takes a lot of resources, and it doesn't take just one person. It takes a team similar to what SmartBox offers our clients. So really, if you want to do have a system, an attraction system, and do it full time, you need a team behind you to really implement that strategy. And we find that few practices really have that.
I think a lot of practices in the $1 to $2 or $3 million range don't even have marketing people that work in house. The doctor is wearing the marketing hat, the doctor's wearing the clinician hat, the doctor's wearing the manager hat. And doing it all. And you're right, they can't possibly set things up. They just don't have enough hours in the day.
Correct.
For those doctors that are watching and want to see how you stack up against what we're talking about here, our patient attraction system, I'd encourage you to just give us a call. We're glad to give you a complimentary blueprint if you're serious about what a patient attraction system can do for your practice in your market area with your patient base, your demographics, what kind of results we've seen in other identical practices to yours. Give us a call at the number on the screen. We'll be glad to set you up, give you an idea of what we can see in our strategy for your practice. And if you like what you see, we can help you do it. Trent, thanks for being on the show. Appreciate it. Sharing some tidbits of your wisdom with everybody here.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to be having David Lang, who's one of our senior graphics designers here at SmartBox. We're going to talk about the aesthetics and the usability and functionality of your website. If you've heard the buzzwords like user experience and user interface, those are the things we're going to cover, and we're going to put it in real simple, easy to use and implementable terms that you can put into play with your marketing system right away. So thanks for being here. Keep moving forward.